So I asked my audience to send me their music and tell me what they're struggling with most right now. And nearly every single one of them said the same thing. When I try to stretch my track into an arrangement, it just gets boring. So in this video, I'm going to break down one of the tracks that someone sent me that's struggling with this exact issue and show you why it's happening, what's going wrong, and how I'd fix it. This is the approach that I've used with hundreds of my mentorship students that helps them turn loops into full tracks that actually stay interesting from start to finish. So we're going to take this guy's track from average to something that's actually releasable on a label. Okay, so first let's take a flick through this track and see what's happening in it. So as you'll see, as I flip through this project, you'll see there's no real evolution and the energy never really changes. If I go to this drop here and this drop here, it's exactly the same both times. Gets very bland, very boring very quickly. Now this is a super common issue. What I'm guessing happened here is when he was still in the loop before arranging it, he knew he needed more, but he left it for the arrangement to add it in. And then when he got into the arrangement, he wasn't sure what to add. So instead of figuring it out while he was still in the loop stage, he instead thought that I will wait until the arrangement and maybe I'll get this magical shot of inspiration that's really going to help me out. But here's the thing. If the loop already sounds bland, the arrangement is not going to fix that. You're just repeating something that's already boring. Imagine it like building IKEA furniture, but you've not first checked you had all the parts. You can continue building, but it's never ever going to feel finished. So what he should have done is built a few different sections and brought in something fresh for each one, but that only works if the original loop is already super strong. So first, I'm going to take it back to the loop and fix what's already here and unlock its full potential. All right, so I've been working on this for about an hour or so now, and I've come across a lot of issues that I see all of the time. So let's have a quick listen to the before and after. Before and after. Before, after. So as we go through these issues, I want you to ask yourself, are you making these mistakes too? So the first issue I came across in this before here is the amount of drums, far too many drums. So if I take the hats, for example, now it doesn't seem like too much of a problem at first, but if we go into the individual channels, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then if we include the loops as well, 15, 16, 17. That's 17 channels of hats. There's so many layers built up that it's completely overcrowding that top end. So this guy's getting frequency builds up, phasing issues, cancellation, and leaving no room for anything else to breathe. Then when you throw them top loops that he's added on top, it just causes pure chaos. Compare that to my version. I've just got one hat that works for the transient and one for the body. In open hats, that's it, apart from the top loops. But you see, mine still take control of that top end. So here's the rule of thumb. If a sound disappears when you turn it on while the track is playing, just delete it because it's just taking up space in the mix and you could use that space for something that matters. So the next mistake I've found is there's far too much processing within this project. As we go through, you'll see, look at this kick, for example. I've used the same kick, but took all of the processing off and it actually sounds better. Or take these congas, for example, that he's used in this perk group. Look at all this crazy processing at the bottom of the screen here that he's used. I've taken all of that processing off and got a better result because every piece of processing you use should have a clear purpose. But what I see here is processing just for the sake of it, probably just copied from a tutorial he's watched. The sounds that you choose should already be doing 80% of the work, and processing's left for fixing problems and not trying to make sounds that are subpar sound good. Now, if we do a quick comparison to the before and after again, here's the before and after. Which one sounds cleaner? Before or after? And I actually stripped 99.9% of all the processing off this track. I've simply only added some reverb and delays to the sounds and just EQ here and there. So with your processing, unless there's a specific reason for it, you're probably doing more harm than good. Now, the next mistake I came across is the panning of sounds. Let's take these hats again, for example. If we look down here, you see this one's 24 right, this one's 23 left, this one's 19 left, this one's 20 right. And this goes on throughout the whole project. This one's 12 left, this one's 11 right. Panning can create space, but when you're having to pan loads of sounds left and right, it's usually a sign that your mix is overcrowded, which we've already proven it was with the drums earlier. So if you're panning lots of things left and right, you're trying to make space for things that probably shouldn't be in the project anyway. I'd rather have key sounds in my project and then use a widening plugin like Wider. It's a free plugin called Wider. You can Google it. And I'd rather just make my key sounds have a little bit of space on the sides, equal both sides, rather than panning everything left and right. Now, there is a time and a place for it. Sometimes I will pan things slightly left and right, but I won't be going 25 left and 25 right and then the next channel 25 left. You catch my drift here. Now, again, if I do it before and after, you'll notice mine, even though I've not got everything panned left and right, doesn't lose width. Watch before. And after. If anything, mine actually sounds wider. Okay, so the next thing I found in here is a misused swing setting. You've got to be extremely careful with swing. You see on this MPC one here, the velocity here is set to 35%. Now that's because some of the swing presets in Ableton change the velocity of sound, which means some of your sounds are hitting quieter than they should, even though you didn't ask for it. So when you apply swing to sounds, always open your groove pool down here and check that the velocity here is set to 0. If not, the groove of the track might sound sloppy and inconsistent, and you probably won't even know why. So with groove, I like to keep it simple. So the only settings I really use are the swing 16ths, and I will go between from about 57 all the way up to 64. I rarely go over 64. And then I like the swing logic 16ths from 57 up to about 64, 65 again. And then the MPC 3000s, again, from about 57, 64, 68 is extreme swing. Sometimes I will use it if it's quite a minimal track. And finally, I sometimes use the notator 16 B, C, and D. E starts getting a little bit extreme again. What I recommend doing is taking all the swings I just mentioned, adding them to your groove pool down here, and then saving it to your default template so they're there to use next time. Then when you go into a sound, any sound, you will already have your swings all lined up here, and you can just flick through them, finding the one that you want the most. Don't overthink swing too much. It's extremely important in house music. However, if you stick to the ones I just mentioned, you should be fine. Okay, the next problem that I had to fix is if we go to this before again and have a look, he has this group here called texture, and let's take a listen to that in solo. I'm going to higher it up so you can hear it properly. Now, on its own in solo, it's absolutely fine, but when I play that with the rest of this track, where is it? It's not there, right? So yes, in our genre of music, texture is important. However, there's a better way, I believe, to do it. Instead of adding 10, 12 layers of kind of random hits and sounds, I will instead find some tops that have a hell of a lot of texture in them. So if I'm trying to make my sound more gritty and analog, I will find a loop that sounds gritty and analog. Or if I want the song to be clean and modern, I will pick a loop that's kind of polished instead. So let's have a little look. Let's turn these drums on that I was making and show you what these loops do to the project. First, I'll solo them so you hear what they're doing. And you'll notice I wanted a little bit of grip. So we've gone quite old. You can hear gritty. So this is how I will add textures to the project using these gritty loops. So if I solo the drums now, you'll notice these just sit in the very, very background of the track. Then, once I add these loops, you'll notice it goes a little bit more analog sounding. Just adding a little bit of grit in the background. So rather than hitting with 10 different channels of sounds, I will instead just go and find some loops that fit the rhythm and the style of the track and add them in, EQ them if needed, but that's about it. Your texture should be a solid choice, not just a dumping ground for random sounds. Now, obviously, these are just a couple of the main things that I changed. I changed a lot more in there, but all of these problems are the exact reason why I keep saying online that tutorials alone are just not enough. You could sit there for hours watching videos, stacking technique after technique, watching your favorite artist breaking down their track, or your favorite artist give you tracks from scratch. But if you're building on top of fundamental mistakes already, no tutorial or knowledge that you add or technique that you add is going to fix that. The track's still going to sound bad no matter what you add. And that's the problem with most tutorial services and subscriptions online. That's exactly why I stopped mine. They keep feeding you new skills and tactics without first showing you what's wrong. Think of it like this. It's like if you've got cracks in your wall and then you cover it with wallpaper. Yes, they're covered, but the cracks are still there. To make progress right now, you probably don't need more information. You need someone that can sit there with you, look at your work, and say, here's what's holding you back. And no tutorial or a quick feedback on a SoundCloud link that you submit is ever going to give you that. So if you would like someone to sit down with you and go through your projects and tell you exactly what's missing, so the knowledge that you're getting for later can plug into good foundations, check the link in the description. Okay, as you can clearly see, it's a few hours later. I'm actually recording this video in between teaching my clients. So yeah, it's been a long old video if you put it down to time. However, let's get back to the root cause of why this person was struggling in the first place. So they were struggling with the arrangement getting boring, and everyone that submitted their tracks to me, as I said in the intro, was struggling with the tracks getting boring when they went to the arrangement. Now, I spent some time in the background here adding something that I like to call interest. I teach my clients a very strict workflow to make sure that they're on track all the time and they know what they're doing in every session. And as a part of that, the next step after I've created the loop, like you heard earlier, is to include interest. Now, what does that sound like? Well, it sounds like this. A little bit weird, a little bit random, but this is the stuff that should stop the arrangement from becoming boring. So once the loop is already sounding okay to my ears, I will start incorporating this. Now, I don't call it synths. I don't call it a specific anything, because some of the interest, as you'll see here, will be percussion. So I don't like calling it synths. However, predominantly in the style of music a lot of you that are watching will go for, it will be synth stabs and things like that. So what happens next? Well, at the moment, I call this the boiling pot. All the sounds are layered in around a 16-bar loop or an 8-bar loop, I think it is. And it's all just messy. As you hear, if I play this all together now, there's just far too much going on there. So I need to create what I mentioned on a previous video, the ABCD sections. Now, someone commented and said to me that I never actually showed them what the ABCD sections or doing the ABCD sections. Well, my friend, you're about to see it now. Okay. So I'm going to start laying this out. The idea here is to make sure that the track sounds good over time. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't want to repeat myself too much. If you want to see the ABCD sections, watch one of my previous videos. I think it was the video just before this or two before this. So go watch that and that will explain in more detail why I'm doing this. But instead, I'm just going to start laying this out into the sections. First, I need to know how many bars we've got here because I want something to change every single 8 bars. So what are we here? So we're 8 bars in length, which is absolutely perfect for this. So I'm going to first turn off all of these interest layers. First, let's consolidate everything so it's much easier to turn on. So here's our first 8 bars. We're going to make a slight little transition here, which I've already made with this sound at the end of the 8th bar. So that rolls us nicely into the next section. Now, all I've got to do is decide when I get into this section, what is it that I need to turn on? Well, it makes most sense for the main synths to turn on, which are these that were originally here. And then I'm just going to look for little things to support these melodies, maybe take them out again later, but let's have a little look. And what I'm listening for here, is there enough contrast between the sections? I want clear, thorough contrast. And for me, there actually isn't. So I'm going to turn on, try another piece of interest, layered with the other interests I've just turned on. Okay, that works for me. Okay, so let's check the contrast again between these sections. Okay, Okay, that stays quite interesting. I like that. Now I'm going to duplicate that over what we already have. We're going to keep adding layers to it to keep the track interesting over time. I want to make a small transition. However, I will go back through later and work on the transition thoroughly. So let's work out what we want to bring in next. Maybe the vocal. Okay, let's try that. So why we do this is I've now noticed that I don't like the aha thing on the vocal. I just want the boom, hey, hey. Okay, and I just want at the end of the fourth bar or the second bar, whatever the hell that is. I think it's, yeah, fourth bar, that aha. So this is why we make these sections to start working out what's actually going to happen with these layers. Because when it's just in the loop, you don't know if you have enough, you don't know if they're working well together, you don't know how they're coming in, going out, whatever the hell it is. So back now and let's see. I think we can introduce something else with that. It's not got quite enough contrast between the sections for me. So let's figure out what else is in here. So let's turn one of the... What's this? Just a synth stab I found. Let's see what that sounds like. I like that, but I think we can do better. Let's try one of the other ones. That plays off the vocal nice, the placement of it. So we're going to go with that. It's a bit raw at the moment. And this is the time where I will start looking for some processing for my sounds as well, because I can clearly hear when that comes in now, it's too dry. Yet I could not hear that at all when it was still in the loop. So these sections are so important in the workflow that I teach. Maybe a slight bit of delay on them. I think they cut out a little bit abruptly. And I'm not going to care too much about this delay, just very subtle in the background. They're playing nice together. Okay, that section I am happy with. I'm now going to duplicate it, give it a slight kick variation transition, just taking the kicks out for now, come back to them later, and we'll go ahead and see what are we going to do in this next section here. So let's see. What else have we got in these serums that I've made? Very subtle. Okay, it works, but the only way I can really test this is to go back to the previous section, get my ears accustomed to that section, and see if it's contrasting when it arrives. Okay, I can hear it sounds okay, yet it's definitely not enough to cause any contrast, is it? So I'm going to turn this on at the bottom here and see what this is. See what that happens with that. And I'm not sure on that sound at all. I think I'll probably end up deleting that. But again, I wouldn't have known that until I started laying these sections out. So what else do we have? We have a string. That sounds like probably a good idea to bring in. A string will always bring some good contrast, or a pad. Let's make this transition a little bit more abrupt so that we can... Nice contrast there now. Maybe we've even got enough for another section, who knows? So with this one, I'm just going to go back to the previous transition that I had at the end of the very start and repeat it there. Okay, let's test this section. I keep looking here because my camera's flashing red at me and I hope that doesn't mean it's going to die. Let's keep going. Right, what have we got we can add here? So I've got this gated pad. However, my idea was to have that more in the brakes. Also, I've used just an Ableton stock called Transpad Gate, which gives us a nice gated effect on any vocals or pads. Really good for vocals in breakdowns and stuff. So what is this synth here that we've not used yet? Oh, it's that one that we had earlier. Maybe we can bring both the gated pad and that in together. Let's try it. Can't really hear anything happening with that one and this one at the bottom. So I can clearly see now that they can go. We've got enough already. Now what I'm going to do, I would usually at this point go back and work on these transitions quite heavily. However, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to bother. I might do it on the fly as it's playing, but you should hear now, I'm testing here whether I have enough to keep a track interesting throughout a verse or the main verse of the song. Okay, and if this works and it's sounding okay, I now know I can move on into the arrangement. Let's have a little look. The track needs a good mix for sure. So I'm at this point now, and what am I thinking? Well, I think we have enough sounds now to go into the arrangement. As you see, it didn't really feel like the track got boring. It felt like it was constantly evolving over time. However, there is some things that I would need to change, but this is so much less overwhelming than doing it in the loop because we've got it laid out into sections. So I can now get my notepad. This is what I do a lot. I get my notepad and I write any notes I've got for just the A section. So what the thing where I had main problems was back here when everything's playing together. I noticed that some of the stuff's not quite the right timing, but I'm not overwhelmed because I can just go straight into that section, make the changes, and then duplicate whatever I changed into the next section to continue it. Really, really simple way of knowing you have enough elements. Now you've seen why the ABCD sections can work, but if you'd like to know more detail about why I do this and how they work, watch this video here next.